smooth jazzing our way into our first elimination match of this fine Saturday of Paladins actions, and you may have heard a soft giggle there at my horrible intro to this segment. That was the giggle of none other than Fawn the Legend. He's here with me to hopefully tell me all the ins and outs of what we're going to be seeing here. We've got, again, Fawn, our first elimination match. A couple of teams that had tough draws in their matchups earlier on. Celestial at least got a map win. Interstellar unable to do so.
Yeah, and I think that's what's important to keep in mind here is the fact that Celestial, Esports, and Interstellar, they're no slouches. They aren't not used to playing each other at this point. You got the third and the fourth seed battling it out. They're no strangers to one another. The first time these two teams actually played, Celestial won 3-1, and you go, well, okay. I mean, that makes sense, I suppose. I mean, Celestial is the higher seed in that case. They are third seed over fourth. So if you want to use seeding logic, then yeah, by all means, they should be able to do that. But the most important part is the last times these two teams have played, it was 3-2, and all of them were close matches when that ended up happening. So I think today is definitely the day where we see who will be the one that comes out on top.
Fawn is putting Game 5 back out into the universe. Look, I don't know. We might have hit our quota on Game 5s yesterday, but today, definitely a potential. And I agree with you here, Fawn. I think if there's a matchup where a Game 5 could happen and maybe should happen, it'd be here in this one. Celestial obviously got to ride along with them earlier on, and it was tough sledding for this squad. And, you know, it's never going to be easy when you're going up against Yoinkers and how good they are and how good we know Yoinkers can play. Do you have confidence, though, in the Celestial squad? Do you have increased confidence, I suppose, despite losing 3-1? Does that one map differential in your mind really change much for you, or is that just kind of consolation prize?
I personally believe that it changes, at least, if not a lot, at least a little bit, because I mean it's having that one map differential. I mean, it always means something, right? I mean, it's not easy. Sure, regardless of the fact, like I've mentioned before, if you want to use seeding logic, it makes sense that Yoinkers would end up having a better time against the team it was that they fought against. But even still, I think that says a lot about how the match could potentially go, especially if they're going up against somebody in the seeding that's way closer than they actually are. I can only imagine that one map differential definitely means a lot in an upcoming match like this.
Right, and for confidence probably as well, I'm sure these guys are thinking, well, look, we can take a map off of Yoinkers, and this other squad just got 3-0'd. Why don't we, you know, get in here, turn on the Jets, and maybe we have a chance at winning this matchup and moving on. Their opponents, of course, Interstellar. They drew Clown Fiesta, one who, you know, a lot of us think might even somehow be the better team than Yoinkers. We'll decide who the better team between those two is in our next matchup. But before we get there, we'll have to see how their opponents from match number 2 of the day fare. And that's Interstellar, Fawn. What's your confidence level looking like after their performance in their earlier matchup?
I actually think I have the same amount of confidence in them as I do in as I do watching Celestial, because of the fact that they fought two tougher teams. I mean, they aren't number 1 and number 2 seed respectively for no reason, right? So I genuinely think that it makes it a lot more interesting coming into the match against Celestial, because of the fact that, like I mentioned before, the last time these two teams played, it was 3-2. They've been at each other's throats since as far as the phase has been going, right? So I genuinely think that my confidence level is about the same. They pulled off a couple good plays here and there. Their positioning obviously could have been better when fighting against their opposing team, but even still, I don't think that's going to hurt them too much, especially since the matches have typically been closer.
Well, let's see what map number 1 of surely 5 will be here. Jaguar Falls is how we'll start off here. Interstellar are going to ban out Warder's Gate and Ascension Peak. Frog Isle, Shattered Desert off the board. That's interesting to me. Warder's Gate, not so much. Haven't seen a lot of that. Ascension Peak and Shattered Desert, even Frog Isle you could throw in there, especially yesterday. We saw a decent bit of those 3 maps. So not maps that EU seems to want to play on at all. Jaguar Falls, always fun to start off on a map like this. Really, I think, gives you a temperature check on the way that this matchup might go one way or another. We were kind of at I probably shouldn't even bring it up. I was going to jokingly ask if we think we see another Saris here in this matchup. I think that's kind of a throwaway pick, an interesting curveball maybe there towards the end that gives you enough of an edge. What class do you think might be most important here on Jag Falls? I know mobility tends to be king. Flanker's very important. Do you think those types of picks are really the ones that sway the way Jaguar Falls goes?
Yeah, and I don't mean to be that guy, but I mean, if you take a look at the bans, like, it's all the frontliners, it's all the off tanks,
Sure.
it's all the aggression, like, it's everyone that can force something in terms of dives. Ashe having that assert dominance, a lot of those close quarters, same thing for Cataclysm on the side of Rom, same thing for Hexafire on the side of Ruckus, same thing for Koga with his Cyclone, if anything. I think that these are the types of characters that you want to get rid of, and they're characters that Europe is known for wanting to play, really consistently getting at these off-tank picks because they love playing their dive comps, and of course Europe will know that. That's why they want to lock in this Makoa first,
Right.
have that more staying power, give them some more presence on the point, on and off of the objective.
Yeah, Makoa, continues to be this polarizing pick here, and we've ad nauseum discussed how hit or miss that pick can be, but it's the high potential that Makoa brings that maybe makes him worth the first overall pick here for Interstellar. Celestial going to answer back with the Inara, a pick that sometimes gets completely looked over, which is still wild to me, but not here in this map at least. Celestial lock her in first. How about the Eevee here? We see a lot of mobility, a lot of times it's Zen, we've seen a lot of Lex recently. Eevee, obviously very good in her class. Do you think she fits well here on Jag Falls?
I'm interested to see more so the potential that Eevee has, because I feel like we didn't really see much of Eevee yesterday. I feel like the talk of the town yesterday was more so on focus when it came to that Sky. Obviously, North America seemed to have loved picking that character up, and we even saw it a little bit today in Europe. Where Eevee sort of stands here in a situation like this, I'm not too sure. We saw the Zen sort of being prioritized a lot. I mean, we see it on the side of Interstellar. We've seen it on other compositions as well. I genuinely think that the Eevee here gives them some sort of advantage personally in terms of the verticality. Zen's damage fall off on that on every swing, but his last one will be a little bit harder to try and catch that Eevee, lock her down. I mean, she'll have an easier time diving onto that IO. It's hard for IO to get out of situations like that, especially when you have to deal with a Grover. The cripple axe is always going to hit just as hard as it did whatever match that he was being played.
Yeah, IO has that habit of really just changing the face of the game just because of Luna. And regardless of healing numbers, healing output, things like that, it just totally changes how the opposing team has to prioritize and has to play around a pick like that. So I like Interstellar kind of throwing that in here towards the end. Willow makes an appearance as well, so now both teams, Fawn, have some sort of verticality, have some sort of blaster presence. One's got the Willow, one's got the Eevee. Sky to round out the draft here for Celestial. What do you think the Celestial team is looking to do?
Well, I mean, this is definitely a full send sort of team. They have triple DPS with the Grover. I mean, we know that people that pick Grover love to make sure that their team is grouped up. They have to group up around it. The healing spreads out through walls as well. So I can imagine maybe even Grover gets a little bit of the action, I mean, maybe he even moves up, tries to toss out a couple of axes here and there, tries to cripple, lock down that Zen, lock down that Makoa, the Terminus, the Willow. They have their mobility. They have some verticality with the Willow. But if that Deep Roots hits her, it's going to be a lot harder for her to get up into those high-to-reach places and make it even easier for Vivian to burn down and Sky to capitalize on anybody that may be some stragglers.
That's a great point. Then there's a Makoa on the other side. That'll be great for a little bit of that lockdown. Interstellar versus Celestial, knockout game number 1. Let's kick it off.
Exactly right, Dolson. Someone's Paladin season is about to end. This set will be the decider, and Jag Falls will be the first of those battlegrounds. Finch and Goremizer here in Gore. Both teams have the mobility, the verticality from their flanker, the Willow and the Eevee, but only one team has a Vivian to help shoot the other one out of the sky. How do you expect this match to go?
Man, that Vivian's the wild card. Like you said, that hit scan nature that's going to come through to really, really give some trouble to that Willow. But you have so much point pressure on the side of Interstellar. I mean, just take away, like, you've got Terminus. That's already pretty good. You have a backup tank in the Makoa. That's pretty solid. You've got Luna there coming in from Io. Now things just seemed unnecessarily stacked on that side, but then you add in the dead zone on top of it. 4 champions, 4 different types of pressure that they can apply to this midpoint. I think that's going to cause a lot of distress here for Celestial, and that's something that Interstellar are going to have to be aware of and take advantage of because they have that.
You're not wrong about the distress, huh? Slopodopoulos catches the hands to start off this mid. as they're already on the board. Control here for Interstellar, and you talked about these tank score. Terminus and Makoa, it's hard to get much more control than that, as Tired finds one more kill into Closar, and we have ourselves a pause in the middle of this already exciting match. But Gore, no big surprise to me, you already seem to be pretty right about how these mids are going to go.
It's just, I think there's a lot of fight potential that Celestial bring into the equation. It's the downside. It's something that we faced with Luna pretty much all last year. Io, I guess, is technically, she's the champion. I should refer to her, but it's Luna that comes through, right? It's something that you deal with when she is in the equation. It happened in Phase 1, very, very prominent in Brazil, but we got to see this point where you have to get used to fighting 70% down on the point. Like, you just have to recognize at the beginning of this, if you're Celestial, you're not going to be there for the first 70%. You're not going to exist. You won't be able to fight on equal ground. You will have to come back from a deficit and win that second engagement, but that's not outlandish to do. I mean, a lot of teams have done it. We just saw Clown Fiesta do it in the last set.
Well, let's see if they can find a touch, because Interstellar have control. Toot tried, but died from the effort. Tired is the one that claimed the life, so one more touch comes through as Celestial do everything they can to keep the clock ticking, but they seem to be running out of options. Closar has now dropped as well, and everyone else is stacked up on the wrong side of the map. Interstellar will strike first, and it looks like they want to strike second as well. But a good answer from Slapodopoulos will slow down their post-cap moment.
Yeah, all the DPS gone, but again, this is one of the things Interstellar can do so well, is just outside of Io's health bar individually, I mean 2200 typical with the supports, not a lot to work on, but then you factor in what Luna's got sitting right next to her, as well as the stun that can come through from that Fox, plus the health bars that you're going to have, and then added effective health bars with the healing coming through for these tanks. Staying power is Interstellar's true strength here. I don't know if this is a team that can find a solid conversion at any point in this game, but this is a team that will not give up any ground to you if they don't have to. You have to get so deep into the back, and even now, I mean, look at Tutu, 5100 health, and just getting to the team cost him a majority of his health bar.
Yeah, and what's crazy is that Interstellar used a couple ultimates, right? Begone, maybe not the biggest deal in the world, but Faithlight was used earlier as well. That's no problem. You'll have plenty of time to work those ultimates back, but Celestial defend largely just on their own. They've got 4 ultimates ready to go, and won't be too long before Vivian has hers back up as well. So looking as though Interstellar are struggling in this phase. That was the other part of your prediction. Yes, their mid-fights are good, but they do seem to be struggling in terms of conversion, and if Celestial can figure out a way to get these mid-fights around, then maybe they're in a decent spot after all.
It is a very Jaguar Falls-esque draft from Interstellar, but when I'm looking at it, it's the most Ice Mine style play. Like, I don't expect them to win any conversion throughout the rest of the game. Maybe they'll be able to get, 50%. They might even find some that go close, but it doesn't look like they have a lot of capability of fighting, especially when things transition into a nice open area. You can see what this Skye, this Eevee, this Vivian can do for Celestial, but it's so difficult to win the actual mid-fight for Celestial because of Interstellar's comp that it feels, again, I equate it to Ice Mines because it feels like you're going to go to a 3-3 with Interstellar capturing mids 1, 2, and 3, Celestial getting defense 1, 2, 3, and then that last one being the one where Celestial really have to crack the shell that is Interstellar, otherwise run the risk of losing this map.
Certainly could, but they certainly don't seem to be running the risk of losing this defense with 10 seconds left. They send Barcode and Sneeze all the way back to base. A touch seems unlikely from this point, which means that Celestial have found themselves a successful defense, and we will indeed be coming around to this next mid-fight there. Yeah. So we know that Celestial have been struggling in these, but what is the adjustment going to be? I feel like they've got to win some fights in these lanes and come back to the mid afterwards, but they struggle with even that in that first mid.
Yeah, I think a lot of the pressure is more or less onto Slapodopoulos. I think Otev and Closar have their own individual matchups that they can win and really help factor. But it's Slop, 100%, who has to be the one impacting this team fight, going into the backline, getting either Barcode, ADC is bad, or Tired, one of the 3 as a primary target, and just burning them down. Even if he trades his life for it, I think that makes it so much easier then for Celestial to start moving forward, for Closar or Otev to find that next pick, just because there's so much, I want to say, capability of controlling the objective on Interstellar. Just strip them down as much as you can. So watch for the Skye to see what she can do.
Well, let's see. Slop has already found his way to move towards the back. Faithlight used by the Willow as well, so he knows there's some aerial he has to look out for. But Toot has already dropped it. Without the tank, I think that they're dead on arrival. They've lost 3 already. Otev, Slop, Klosar have all been sent to the afterlife, and Interstellar again run over them in the mid.
They use a lot of ults, though. I mean, Flight, Ancient Rage, as well as that Begon, all used just to try and make sure they maintain that. Nothing outside of those Sentinels used on the side of Celestial, but Sentinels are really where I think a lot of their damage is going to come from. They're missing that, and unfortunately for Toot, it doesn't look like he's going to make the impact he wants here.
Time bomb there, but no impact from it. And Toot, man, the retake potential seems almost next to 0, doesn't it, Gore? I mean, he is barely making it there with the sliver of health still left, and he dies instantly afterwards. And this time, Interstellar might be able to do a decent bit of progress on the back of the capture. But they'd already lost their IO and their Willow. Otev gets rid of Invali, and that should indeed be it for it now. We'll get to see Celestial set up yet another good defense.
Yeah, I think this is, again, I'm almost expecting, and this is going to be my expectations for this set. The last 2 times these teams have played, it has gone 5 games. Interstellar has been able to take the win in the last 2 times that they've played, and granted, in Phase 2, it was so long that sometimes you might even factor out everything except the last time they played. But not only does this map feel like it should go the distance, this set feels like it should go the distance. I feel like both of these teams are going to take their pace because they recognize that. And they know each other incredibly well. They're right next to each other in the standings. They, in Europe, outside of Yoinkers and Clown Fiesta and above the other 2 teams that ended up 5th and 6th, these 2 were the ones that really did feel like they were on the cusp of breaking towards the top, but never able to do so. And like you mentioned earlier, as an Elim match, this is the time, like this is the only time you have to break through to get to the top again until next season or whatever holds in the future, because otherwise this team, I mean, you're eliminated, you're going home. You have to put it all on the table here.
This does seem as though you wouldn't want this whole year to build up to nothing, but hey, a couple kills go Interstellar's way. We might get to see a bit of an offense happen here after all. Now the Vivian is still up, but for how much longer, making it around the corner away from Tired is important. But I think you're on borrowed time. That will indeed become the case. Klosar drops. And let's see if Interstellar can find a way around this very first of the difficult choke points that exist. But they're putting great damage in the Toot. Even have a time bomb down as well, but somehow Toot still lives. Barcode finally claims that life, and so the cart begins its humble journey, slowly moving towards conversion. But Celestial have been stalwart so far. Can that continue? Will that hold out with these great ultimates they have still left? Whirlwind, Seismic, Crash. Seems as though this won't be the easiest thing for them.
Yeah, I think if you're Celestial, your ideal world, you don't have to use any of those, right? You're holding on to them, you're making sure that you got them in the pocket for the next mid, because that could turn the tide in the mid fight. Now with a couple of kills coming up their way, feels like this one's just going to kind of dissipate out into nothing as the timer goes down. And realistically, if this push, at least for Interstellar, isn't able to get in the base, I mean, you're in overtime trying to get a conversion in a moment like that, especially knowing the other team has ults. Like, if you don't want to use any, you're at that point holding on for as much as you can and maybe picking up some credits from standing around the payload, right? You're not necessarily trying to dig your heels in and grind that one all the way through. And I think Interstellar know that, because now you can look at the itemization. Capturing 2 mids at this point in the game gives you a pretty heavy economy shift. It's 300 credits per player that you get whenever you capture the midpoint. And now that's 600 credits Interstellar have on everybody that Celestial doesn't get otherwise. And you can see them trailing just slightly behind in the itemization because of that. Some of them not able to afford the next tier 2, maybe not going for a 4th item or getting that tier 3 that they really want, since a lot of COT 2s are picked up there on Celestial. Whereas ADC is bad, he's got some blast shields, he's got a Haven, he is living his life safe in the backline. Same thing there for like Barcode, Snaze, and Invali. They all have some items to help them specifically stay alive through this, which is going to hurt Celestial in the mid.
Following along with Slop, we've said he's the one they need more from, and hey, Selestial hasn't started to fight off on even ground yet, so a 1-for-1, not too bad. Toot. Look at the contest inside, but gets melted, but so does the IO on the other side. Invali, though, with the response, the ultimate usage strong, but Tired is relentless, pushing alongside his Makoa, and they make more work. Just like that, even when things look like they're starting off on a good foot, Interstellar's back in control.
I mean, there's still 4 ults available on the side of Celestial. It's just getting in time. They're going to get a Seismic Crash now, but look at Toot's health!
He gets melted right as it lands, so it ends up being of little value. Interstellar now with 3 minutes in a row. And I know it's 3-2, very likely to end up 3-3, and that seems even on paper, Gore, but when the mid fights are this one-sided, it's not close. That's the important part.
And again, you go back to it, and what I was mentioning between rounds, especially depending on how this one goes, every kill is more credits. But you've got 900 in the pocket, more than Celestial. Like, just inherently, the game has awarded you more money. And so you're going to come in a little bit more strong, a little bit stronger, only because of that itemization. I mean, you can see 300 gap between the top of Celestial and the bottom of Interstellar. And that is such a big just dichotomy to face when you are a DPS here. And unfortunately, it feels like that's slowly starting to get the best of them. I mean, each time this payload's gotten a little further, I wouldn't be surprised if Interstellar can maybe push the boundaries of it. Maybe not get the full conversion, but at least break base this time.
See if maybe you can draw some resources out from Celestial, although they have seemed a bit hesitant to use their ultimates in the mid-fights anyway. Perhaps that could be a difference maker in this next one, as once again, Celestial thrive in this defense in the post cap, where they have shredded Interstellar so far, but Invali has been a man possessed, hasn't he? There is the spike landing as well, and of course the kill goes to Invali. 2-2 drops 2, and maybe a little bit of an opening here for Interstellar to start up some progress, but even if they don't, so far, with the way the game has gone, they cannot be all that worried about the 3-3.
Yeah, I think at this point in Interstellar, there's no necessarily lose condition in their brain. You either get this conversion or you get the mid, right? I mean, everything's been going so swimmingly in their favor, but that's the downside. And again, this goes back to old Ice Mines. Sometimes I would even argue current Ice Mines in a way, where teams would fight for that 3-3. You didn't really care how the first 15 minutes of the game went. You really only cared about that last mid fight. And that could be something that Celestial focus on. If you use your ults first this time, you know, going into the next mid, you try to find that control early on, it's still incredibly difficult to displace Interstellar, but there is a world where they just relax. Yes, you lose all those credits. Yes, you bide time. But if you can force an ult or two out here in the next 10 seconds from Interstellar, you come in with a distinct advantage.
They've been getting a lot of work done off of Faithlight and the Ancient Rage, and those are the two ultimates that they have. Even looks like Reanimate won't be far off as Celestial gets their third defense of the game. So some key ultimates are going to be available there for Interstellar, maybe not despite, but 5 are there for Celestial. We just need to see them use them.
Barcode, like you said, maybe not too close on that spite, but I have a very hard time believing that's not going to be a very, very solid ult to have. Depending on Toot Toot's survivability at the beginning of this round, Barcode might just spite Toot Toot to get rid of him a little bit later, right? If things go catastrophic,
like going right to the mid? Like, I feel like maybe he should try and fight them on some other sides.
Yeah, no, at this point, you can't just run it mid. Like, and running it down mid for Celestial is going to end the game and not in their favor. It is going to give Interstellar the W pretty easily. I think, like you said, you need to go around the side. You need to get that seismic crash into a good position. And for Toot Toot, that means holding an angle that they maybe wouldn't expect from the Inara.
Barcode takes some damage right away. Looks like he was locked in battle with the Eevee, and Toot Toot gets the damage. So Faithlight will be the response from Interstellar, who do control the mid. It looks like Celestial have taken their fight to the lanes, but this time Tired is able to find a kill, even with the whirlwind there. It will not prove enough. Otev gets caught as well as Tired finds 2 very hefty bounties for himself, but what more can they do? Toot Toot now coming out to contest Snaze on the actual point, so he stops them at 75%. But it looks like Snazy is the one with backup. Even with the time bomb here, that will not deter the Terminus. Barcode is able to find a little bit more damage. There's that spite we were looking for, but it ends up landing on another target. With the 99% and the overtime ticking down, it looks like Interstellar will just happily take 4 mids in a row for the win on Jags Falls.
I can't think of a more comfortable position for a Terminus to be in at the end of the game. He's got plenty of power siphon. He's not worried about shots. His health bar's full. He's got Reanimate. Like, that is the least stressed out Terminus that has ever existed. I think you could take that and just pull his essence out. It would be pure chill. If you drank it, you would be relaxed for the rest of your life. There's nothing for him to worry about there. And I think that's exactly what that comp was. I mean, at the beginning, it just felt like one that's going to have mid control better than anything else. And at the end of it, it had mid control better than anything else. Nothing Celestial could do to just move those tanks out of there.
Yeah, nothing at all changed about the state of that one the whole time. We'll take a little bit of that chill essence Score was talking about and hand it over to the desk.
A great way to start off this knockout round. And, you know, it's close on the scoreboard. It's a 7-point game. We go to a 3-3 mid-fight. But, Fawn, is it really all that close? I mean, this is Interstellar controlling these mid-fights time and time again. They got stuffed on the defense, but the mids were never particularly in question, it seemed.
Yeah, it didn't seem like that at all, really. And one thing it was I wanted to point out, and I'm sure some people in chat have pointed out, people that were paying attention has pointed out, but I feel like it's still good for anybody that missed it. That Sky ran Debilitate. That Sky actually didn't run Smoke and Daggers, which is interesting to say the least. Typically, you run that Smoke and Daggers, you pair Sky off with an off tank, they go run off, do whatever, she throws on the smoke bomb, you're healed, you're fine, etc., etc. I feel like the Debilitate was taken sort of, I guess, not only to just burn the tanks, but they didn't really have an off tank. I guess she just didn't see the point in trying to make sure that they double stack all their healing on top of one another on the objective. But of course, you can't mention Sky at all because of the fact that you had to deal with the Makoa. Like, Debilitate or not, you saw how well Envio was doing throughout this game. It was just unstoppable is what it felt like. Time and time again, the Makoa had too much health, too much healing at his back. Io is great at pocketing people. They left Luna on point, and if there was ever a time where Envio was low, you can bet that Io was there to keep him alive. Already a strong enough frontliner, and it clearly showed when they actually focused more on the fighting than capturing the point.
Well, you know, we were watching in our other channel, or our other Discord channel, and we were kind of talking while it was happening, and I jokingly said, man, that Sky nearly just one-shot somebody, and you're like, yeah, but, like, she didn't, and then she died. Like, that's all we saw the entire game was, like, she nearly one-shot somebody, and then she didn't, and then she died, so tough game for sure. Hey, look, I still like it. I think it's fun to play. You just shred through tanks, shred through targets, but tough sledding when you have the lockdown that Interstellar did in Game 1. We'll move over, Fawn, to another map that's somewhat standard in Stone Keep here, so probably won't see anything out of left field, probably won't be anything all that wild, but would you agree that it's another map where you can kind of play your own play style and that it caters to a lot of opportunities?
Yeah, I would entirely agree with that. I mean, we've seen so many different characters on this map. I mean, we've seen the Drogos before. We saw Drogos yesterday after I almost forgot what champion he was because it's been so long since we've actually seen somebody willingly lock in a Drogos in the North American bracket or at all. We've seen him there. We've seen Dredge being played by being played to mainly take control over Keep. We've seen Scuttle Dredge. We've seen Hurl Dredge on this map before. We've seen the Bomb King as well, something that we saw during the European region. I mean, I think there's so many opportunities to still play what it is that you want to play. You'll see a little bit more diversity, I personally feel like. If people felt like Bomb King was good enough to pick in the European bracket, then I definitely feel like he's definitely good enough to pick on Stone Keep if they feel the need to lock him in.
And these first couple of picks, I think, will tell a big story here about where priority continues to lie. Makoa still available. And really, off-tanks start to come at a premium when you're going to dedicate 3 out of 4 possible bans to off-tanks. So Makoa, very important here. You wonder if then Interstellar feel a little bit of extra pressure, maybe to look for the con or something of the like. But as second pick in a situation like this, you'd also have the ability to start to force the hand of Celestial a little bit, in that you can really start to corner the market on damage dealers or point tanks maybe in this case. And Inara's yet again going to get picked first overall, and yet again going to get followed up by an Eevee. Why do you think we see this Inara priority when we haven't so much in other matchups?
I think Inara, this was being talked about the other day, like yesterday in North American bracket. Okay, Twitch chat. I saw you guys talking about she may not be that good anymore.
Twitch chat hasn't talked about anything except for Furia in the last hour or so.
I'm more so talking about yesterday.
They really want Furia to get picked here in this matchup, I think. But go ahead, Fun.
So Inara, I still feel like has that plenty of survivability and sustainability. That's what I'm trying to get to. Is the point is that she has plenty of survivability. Doesn't matter whether you're on the point or off of the point with her. She can play aggressive if you want. We've seen some of the flank of Inara, whether you're watching the PPC or the PCML or whatever it is that it may be. You really see that. Okay, all right. production. I cannot. There's no way it's Furia. It has to be Corvus, right? They have okay. Well, it's Strix. I'm thinking more so in terms of the lines of healers. It's either Corvus or Maldamba. I personally feel like it pairs so well with Inara. Corvus would be so good at spreading out the heals between Eevee and Strix, and also making sure that he can keep that Inara pocket on them. Personally, I just think that that's a good look for that.
Yep.
Honestly, and there it is. There's a Corvus.
There you go. Good call there, Fawn. Corvus rounding out the draft here. It is interesting watching these different regions and the way they prioritize certain picks start to pan out. Over here in EU, at least between these two teams, it's been tanks early on, and then fine, we'll deal with the healers at a somewhat later date. So Celestial the opportunity to pick Furia. I doubt it will be the case, but you know, or excuse me, they already have Io, so it doesn't even matter what healer they lock in. Vivian to round out their draft here, so they got triple DPS. Buck, though, I think is where my eyes go here, Fawn. Buck had seen a lot of play throughout the phase, slowed down a little bit. What do you think of him here on Stone Keep?
I actually like Celestial's draft quite a bit, honestly. I think it's good because Io's not that great at spreading out heals. She's better at pocketing, and I think having two very survivable flanks like Zen and Buck to sort of handle things on their own, only come back for healing when necessary in certain scenarios, means that Io has less to worry about. I mean, she can drop Luna on point, focus on the Makoa, focus on the Vivian that they know is going to be dived, and in the retrospective of that, I mean, you have the Cassie, you've got the Strix, the Eevee. I think the Eevee is going to be great at diving into the backline. I don't think she's going to be as good at diving into Zen, Buck, Vivian. I think no matter who you are, that's even worse off than before. Strix, though, might have his work cut out for him. I think it's honestly worse for Strix than it is for Eevee, than it is for Vivian, excuse me, because he has to deal with Zen and Buck at the same time, and I don't think they really have the means of peeling back to try and save him if he gets in danger.
Don't be surprised if we see a little Illuminate picked up by the back line dive. Game number 2, Finch and Gormizer on the call.
Thank you, the dash there, Dave and Fawn. We will indeed be moving on to Map 2, Stone Keep, in this very important elimination battle between the two squads that have already dropped down to the lower bracket, Interstellar and Celestial. Now, Gore, you saw the matchup here. Solo tank Makoa versus solo tank Inara. So far this weekend, I feel like that's favored the Makoa.
Yeah, I mean, most of the time, a majority of it, I'd say, I don't want to say 9 times out of 10, but it feels like, at least, more often than not, Toot should have the favorable matchup. I actually really am interested in Celestial's team comp. I'm really excited to see how it works here. Although I do think it feels like a more Timber Mill-esque draft than necessarily a Stone Keep draft to me. Whereas Interstellar definitely are coming in with something that feels, again, 3 champions, maybe 5 champions realistically, that feel really good on this map together. So it'll be fun to watch, specifically the Buck and the Xin and how they tackle the problem that is Interstellar, getting to the backline, dealing with the Strix, and more importantly, trying to take down that Eevee, because she is going to be a pesky thorn in the side if they can't find a way to consistently take her off.
Well, there is that first blood, the Eevee being a thorn indeed. Barcode gets the second as he takes care of Slopadopoulos. Looks like we do have another brief pause at the start of this one, but you can see the approach here, right? Celestial are going to be hanging out, I believe, over in Church. We saw Interstellar over in Keep with Luna right on the point, and seeing if there's some kind of way they can make their way out of that Church, or the Keep side, excuse me, with that Makoa, but it's been struggle so far.
That's always, like, the awkward conversation that comes up when there's an IO on board is, like, technically, if you look at these drafts, it is solo tank versus solo tank. But realistically, it's Makoa plus Luna versus Inara. And, again, in days of old for Inara, that's not the worst thing in the world. In fact, you know, you go back 4 or 5 months from right now, and that's so good for her that it's worthwhile. First off, Io was competitively banned, so maybe there's some weird conversation there. But also, Makoa just wasn't necessarily in the same spot. Now I think there's a little bit more of a struggle, at least in terms of point pressure. But what we're seeing, in my eyes, out of Interstellar here is just going to cause too much trouble for this team and Keep to break out of there and actually get on the point the way that their draft is kind of built to.
Good work from Invali. Not going to let them just drop the Luna down for free. And Cap, Interstellar have now reclaimed control by putting out that Inara. But here comes Toot trying to do some work to slow them down onto the Makoa. They have regained some control. They're looking to see if maybe they could even push into the Church here a bit, but they're taking a lot of damage on the push. Toot and Closar both fall. And maybe that aggression just got punished. Even some snipes coming in from Barcode to make matters worse. And with this much missing here from the composition, Interstellar might have already done enough, unless someone wants to die. Jumping out to the point, it's Luna first. Overtime is ticking. But it looks like they've bought just enough time for Tutu to make his way back out as Barcode playing Blank puts down Otev. Closar, though, gets the return kill onto Tired. With OT ticking, though, they're going to need a few more kills to go their way, just like this. Xenos has grabbed himself a double, taking care of Snaze and Invalai. And they might even be able to get one more, but that's Barcode getting a kill before he loses his life. But Celestial barely hold on and take care of the mid.
And much like Interstellar had better just point presence last map, I feel like Celestial, through the Makoa and the IO, have better point presence this time. The only downside, and I don't know who I would replace for this because their 3 DPS are all really solid DPS, but I feel like if they had something like a Khan or a Rom on the side, you know, a Ruckus, a lot of which get banned away from them, it would just be so much stronger. Right? Just having one of those off tanks, even an Ashe, who we don't get to see too often, would maybe help alleviate some of that pressure and just force Interstellar into an uncomfortable spot. So far, I mean, you can't really complain. Things are working for them, even though it takes a little while to get the ball rolling. And it feels like they have this control. If you can find the Cassie and or Barcode first, then it's going to make it so much easier. Eevee is a thorn in your side. She's not the end-all, be-all in terms of DPS.
No, not the way that sometimes it feels like a Vivian or a Strix can be, as Otev looks to take some of this high ground up top. They just got a critical kill onto Tired to slow him down. Now Snaze as well. So Celestial looks like their mid-fight is much more likely to turn into a conversion than Interstellar's was on Jag Falls. They still play it patiently, though. Now Closar looking to take some shots down range as Slapodopoulos puts Tired down again, and the cart continues to roll. Finally, they're able to get their Inara back out to start contesting at least a little bit, using the wall to try and get to some safety, but there will be no safety. Snaze falls again, and Celestial get a nice quick 2-0 lead.
So there's something that Interstellar were doing at the very beginning of the game that admittedly they just had struggles doing throughout that entire push from Celestial, and it's something that's always good when you're up against an IO, and I expect to see a lot of Bulldozer coming through, but whenever Luna was dropped on the point, Barcode, Invalai, as well as, I mean, a little bit of ADC and a little bit of Tired would throw shots over there. And it's going to be important to note who has the Bulldozers and who doesn't, because that damage is going to be so nice, right? I mean, if you have Barcode and Invalai, who as of right now don't have a Bulldozer at all, shooting, they're going to take a little bit longer to deal with Xenost's presence, as opposed to ADC as bad and Snaze, who admittedly don't have quite the same damage output. So overall, I'm wondering if Interstellar are going to be able to keep up with this, because that point presence is realistically what pushed them out last time.
But already Snaze is low, trying to contest the mid, forced to retreat. Give up that ground, and Celestial are already moving out. Celestial need to have more control of the mid, considering Interstellar would have that comeback mechanic helping, but Barcode gets handled. Exactly what you want Otev to do on this buck. Get back there and punish this immobile Strix. Closar gets rid of Invalai as well. There's the spite being used to lock down ADC. A triple kill for Closar. And Celestial are running over Interstellar. Jag falls in the rear view as Celestial are looking a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, and completely drastic. I will say for Interstellar, part of it, I think, was the draft that stopped them from finding a 4-0, but it's never good to win, 4-3 and then lose 4-0, right? Like, if your only wins are going to be very close games, it doesn't give a lot of trust in your capabilities of maybe progressing beyond that. And again, these teams, most of the time, have gone 5 games against each other, but you want to roll it back way, way back when. Beginning of Phase 2, Celestial was able to take it as a 3-1. Hopefully, for Interstellar's sake, they didn't just get the only one that they're going to put up on the board today. And there's still a lot of wiggle room, but 3-0 at any map is just not a good scoreline to try and fight back from. Even if you defend here, just on the edge the entire rest of the game, knowing that one mid-fight going wrong is all it takes.
One missed touch, right? One delayed death and stagger, or anything like that could be the reason that you lose one of your important games here in this elimination, in the lower bracket. Nice little Makoa hook coming out there from Toot, able to set up for a kill, and Celestial, with the 5v4 advantage, could be looking to find that all-important 4th point here on Stone Keep, and evening up this set. It looks like all of the presence from Interstellar is on the high ground to the left, and they've kind of given up on the other positioning, but now Snaze is dead. It feels like there's always one member of Interstellar that's missing, as Celestial have been able to dominate the pick part of the battles here so far, but now they've lost Otev. He was off on a mission on his own and could not survive it. Slopodopolis looking for damage from range. A Makoa hook lands again, and that will be the difference as Invalai falls. But Klosar ends up dying for it, so maybe the push not as easy as they would have liked. As Interstellar managed to hold on, a double from Tired will keep them in this defense.
Oh, that payload, even though it was only slightly, still inched forward just a little bit after Interstellar started to push forward. That's something that you have to be worried about. They don't necessarily have a lot of flanks that can just blink past you the way we've seen Eevee do on some of those maps. And a couple of times this year, a lot last year, where that backdoor can come through. But Xin, Buck, both capable of getting beyond the back line, maybe finding their way right onto that payload, at least for a touch here, if not for the maybe sneak in. It doesn't seem like Interstellar are opening up that possibility.
Well, Toot, of course, will be the one that moves in first, and they get rid of Snaze.
No.
How do they keep doing it? And that is enough for Celestial to find the conversion. 4-0 on Stone Keep, and they need a way to keep that Inara alive, man.
I mean, the way this set has gone so far, and granted it's only 2 maps, and that one wasn't that fast, so there's maybe not a lot of data behind it, but it does start to feel like whoever gets IO is the team that's just going to have that advantage. That control over the point between these two just does not seem to be getting handled well enough on the other side that it's something that you have to start looking at banning, or if you're first pick, scoop it up as fast as you can, because I think she so far has been very determining. Even though it's the factors around her that are winning the game, she is the one that is making, like, the pillar that holds everybody up.
It is starting to seem like maybe the Inara a little too slow as well, as these other tanks have been able to make the difference. We'll see if that holds up, though. Get it back to the desk and have them break it down.
All right, maybe we're starting to get some answers on why the Inara isn't the answer to a lot of the frontline problems. Celestial able to bounce back in this one. They get a 4-0, and Fawn, it's important that it happens, I think, in that fashion, because I already mentioned it as 7-pointy as game 1 was, and it was, a long 7-point game, it was still pretty one-sided towards Interstellar in those mid-fights. There's a lot of successful defenses. This one, good, I think, for getting Celestial back on track.
I agree with that too, and after watching the game, the draft pretty much went how I expected it to. I mean, there were a lot of times where you had situations where IO could get to the flanks, could provide the healing, and there was definitely a time where okay, this is definitely what I wanted to see, because I wanted to know how she got that double kill. Okay, so yeah, she got the last hit on Snaze, and then that was a beautiful Be Gone to make sure she got the kill on Veal as well. Mm-hmm. But this is pretty much what you expect from Buck and Zent. They're going to go off and do their own thing. They have survivability. They can live long. Now, if you see he's diving into the back, stopping Corvus from leaving, I mean, this is just typical what you would expect to see from someone like Klosar, but also from the characters it is that they're playing. And maybe, you know what? I can 100% agree that I could potentially be wrong. It really just might be the fact that that Inara may not just be up to snuff against some of these other tanks. Right. I genuinely feel like she has a place to be held on the frontline page still. I'm not sure if it's because she's still solo tanking or people quite haven't found that niche yet. I don't think the nerf she received to Mother's Grace in terms of DR was that insane. But, I mean, who knows? It doesn't seem like she's able to really do as much as maybe Makoa is. And sure. I think that definitely warrants a ban this next go.
Well, look, I mean, Inara's always been I'm going to stand here, I'm going to soak up a lot of damage, and I'm going to do that better than anyone else in the game. It seems like meta might be starting to shift towards mobility and aggressiveness and the potential of changing fights on a fly. And outside of Inara's wall, she doesn't necessarily do that. Obviously, the seismic crash is great as an ultimate, but she stands there and she soaks up damage, and there's a lot of people running around in a lot of different directions around her. So, if you need somebody who can stand there well, then obviously she'll still be good. But maybe in certain scenarios, a little bit more mobility is key. With that, though, we'll move on to a tiebreaker Ice Mines. We've seen a 7-point game on one end of the spectrum. We've seen a 4-0 game somewhere on the other. Maybe Ice Mines nuzzles itself right there in between. In our conversations around point tanks, Fawn, especially as we move on to Ice Mines, you got to figure Terminus is going to be important here.
Yeah, I definitely think it's important to have Term here. I think he's too good of a map to either not. I don't think Celestial give up Terminus here. I think they have to get rid of it, and they could potentially leave Ruckus open. I'm not too sure if they want to completely ban the Term if they feel like it's necessary. Yeah, I was just about to mention. You can't gloss over the Makoa. I mean, of course, Terminus is a great pick on here, but I don't think he warrants more of a ban than Makoa. The more I was talking about, the more I was like, I definitely don't think you just let Makoa go. He's too strong of a tank. We've seen the potential that he brings, but that leaves open Ruckus, actually. A European classic, I would like to say. They pick Ruckus quite a bit. And with the Khan first lock on the side of Interstellar, I think that might be the potential start of dive that they might be looking for.
And the Terminus will make his way through
Yeah.
Fawn, but it'll be first pick over there for Celestial. So it really seems like at this point both teams probably got what they wanted. I think Celestial with that Makoa ban were honing in on that Terminus pick, and Interstellar maybe didn't want it anyway. Khan with that overpower, especially when you look at a mid-fight that is so quickly won, an overpower just to give your team a 5v4 advantage can oftentimes just win you the mid. So I'm not surprised at all that we see Khan this highly prioritized. Another EV follow-up here. What do we think about EV on Ice Mines?
I think it might be a little bit harder for her to do her job. There's a lot of angles that she has to sort of push and get through that Terminus can very easily block. I think it just might be better to possibly pick a character that might be able to get around that siphon, force a lot of things on targets that might make them a little bit more uncomfortable. I personally was feeling the Tiberius a little bit. I thought maybe Tiberius could be picked here. We've seen him on Ice Mines before. His Heavy Blade Explosion, he can go through the siphon. So I think that it's really important to really just try and get a character like that. As for the Eevee, though, I can sort of see it. She might make Strix a little bit uncomfortable, but I think she's going to have a hard time getting into the back and into an area where she feels the most comfortable at.
Yeah, I specifically look towards those mid-fights and how she's going to be able to position herself in some of those mids. I mean, at some point you're going to have to fly through all the action unless you want to go up and over the gate, I suppose. But Interstellar, they're going to end up with the Inara again. Maybe this is the type of map where mobility isn't all that wildly important, but I won't hone in on the Inara. Instead, I'll make the quick pivot to the more curious pick. And that is the Pip here, Fawn. What do you think that fills here? You already have an Io, you already have a Strix, you already have a Maeve. What do you think this Pip is doing?
I think it's countering out that Grover. I think that's literally what this is for. I think knowing that people are going to position themselves around that Grover, knowing that he has to be within a certain range, even with the cards that he has to increase Blossom healing, whatever the case may be, I think that Pip is going to be rough for Vivian and Grover, because I think he's going to make sure that he has that evil mojo always ready. I think that's the key here. I think it is the evil mojo, his ultimate to sort of try and transmogrify, like change these characters into these adorable little chickens and just see if his team can just sweep them all under the rug of anything. I like to pick Pip here.
Resilience seems like it's going to be important here for Interstellar. You've got some lockdown, the Midnight. Obviously, we'll feel pretty good into that as well. And, you know, I think Terminus gets freed up to work a little bit forward here now that he's got an Io on his squad. It is Game 3. Time to break this tie. Finch and Gormizer will take us in.
We'll break the tie, but will it look just like map number 1, where one team won the mids, but the other had the defenses? Ice Mines will tell. Gormizer, is this Pip going to be enough here for him to break through that double tank on the other side?
I have to echo exactly what Fawn said. It is so heavily dependent on those evil mojos. I mean, you have to look at it because the polymorph on paper is the best part about it, right? All of a sudden, you can't use your abilities, nothing you can do. But you have to understand also with that is their threshold. This is really good against tanks because their health drops down to 1,500. A full health tank, whether it's a Nara with 5,000, a Khan with 4,000, all of a sudden have 1,500 that you're pretty easily able to deal with there. And so there's a lot of kind of quote-unquote execute potential from that ult, and Klosar is definitely in a good position. He's a good blaster, a lot of good damage, good on Ice Mines, but those ults will be the ticket to a victory.
We are now seeing some of the downside. They are running this solo tank Terminus, so he has a lot of responsibility for them. Obviously, they will be able to put Luna on the point, but when Xenos drops, that's not an option. Slop falls as well, and Klosar trying to stay alive in the back. Gets the kill on the Bartoad, is able to get the self-heal off, and maybe even take down Invul. What a play here from Klosar when he was the only one for his team still standing now, as is customary in this set. Looks like we'll be having an early round pause. But what about that Pip play there to kind of keep his team in it?
I think that's something, again, we've seen a lot of greats, and I say this, I've talked about Simzulu a lot, and he's not even in this set, but I'm going to mention him just because, like, players like him who kind of helped bring this Pip to the forefront. And I mean, like, there was a ton of players that you can give credit to why Pip looked good, but only a few that made it look something like you have to ban every game. I mean, there were certain matches you go back a year ago where you're playing on Jag Falls, and if you don't ban Pip against a certain team, you lose. Like, that's just it. It's over for you. There is no conversation about it. You just will lose. That is how it worked out. And I think Klosar is onto something here, being able to have that. Again, a lot of self-sustain, similar to what the Buck had last time. Io and Terminus, as you had mentioned earlier, can focus on the objective. But it's the blast damage. There's a lot of grouping up here on Ice Mines. I think that's going to pay dividends for them.
And obviously running the Catalyst. This is not a Pip looking to heal. Very few are,
no, he's
been making it work. He has been making it work, hasn't he? Toot. Able to find a double kill as Barcode drops in. Celestial have found their rhythm, haven't they? A 4-0 on Stone Keep, and now riding on the back of Klosar's shoulders, low though they are, to the ground when he's playing Pip. It seems to be lifting up the squad.
And so far, I mean, like you said, his self-heals, the reason that you like Pip is because he's this autonomous unit who can kind of do it all himself. He's got mobility, he's got blast damage, nice polymorph that comes through with the first evil mojo of the game to find some kills. All of that, plus the fact that he's self-sustaining, it really does keep him and allow Klosar to be in these moments where he will be make or break, right? They get that point because Klosar lives through there and makes it impossible for them to stand on the objective. So far, this push is going swimmingly because Klosar is driving a huge driving factor for him. The downside is they just used Evil Mojo, so technically you don't have it for next round.
Right, gonna be a bit difficult for them, but it looks like he's building it up quickly, already at 37%. And this cart is close to being converted. This does not happen often on Ice Mines, but we start to see a bit more of it towards the end of the season. But Klosar finally dropping the end of his big streak. They lose Oteb as well. It looks like Interstellar finally got their legs underneath them for this defense. This is what Ice Mines does well. It is a bit of a forgiving defense. You have plenty of chances to do exactly this and try and stall out the Terminus on the other side.
Which is actually interesting. The part of this defense that I would argue is maybe the most difficult, there's two portions. It's if you aren't overwhelmingly winning the mid, getting the payload started is always really, really like a huge
You might
issue.
never touch it.
But then there at the very end, I would argue is actually the hardest part to defend. I think it's the kind of the opposite portion where once you get into that courtyard, there's not a lot of cover for the defensive team to get behind. You're either standing in base or you're in their face. You have no real options other than that. So Celestial losing their grip there, maybe letting this payload regress a little bit into the archway, will give them an advantage of pulling Interstellar kind of out of that base, maybe find some kills, and then take advantage of the surrounding, I guess, area afterward once they break base again.
I see a little bit of Pip team healing there, huh? As he's helping to keep up his Maeve so far. Now, he's got the Evil Mojo again, but never gets to use it. Barcode puts him down with a well-placed shot. Though Tired is traded out, but Barcode is not done. A double as he gets rid of Slop and make it a third as he gets rid of Oteb too. Not quite able to make it 4 with Toot Toot, but I think the damage is already done here, Gore. Gonna be difficult to turn this into a conversion now. Nice little Commander's grab. The overtime trickles down, and Celestial not able to get the convert.
I was joking behind the scenes the last set when we were watching Ice Mines because this is a map that, again, you had mentioned it just a second ago. Not a lot of teams find 4-0s here. Conversions aren't the easiest. Maps like this, Ascension Peak was on that list. Splitstone Quarry was on that list for a long time as well. It just took a while. And I was laughing because, you go back to Virtus Pro last year, one of the teams that was really good at finding 4-0s here. Eventually, like your Navis, your Envies, your NIPs started picking up that capability. And it got to a point where it went from Ice Mines being the perpetual 7-point map no matter what, to Ice Mines was almost your only guaranteed 4-0 for a little bit there. It was really weird. And I think that's something Celestial have. They have the essence of a team that can find it. It's just trying to get it all to line up. I actually admire what they do there. It's better to have this go 1-1 and have all 5 of your ults up. That Whirlwind being used by Interstellar puts them at a pretty distinct disadvantage not having that reset button from the support.
They still have some great options, though, as the Sentinel comes down right away from the Vivian. But this point fight's already gotten messy. They're moving into the con, see if they can slow him down quickly, but Barcode has already gotten rid of Klosar yet again. This is twice in a row now that he has died early on in the fight. Tired has gotten himself a double kill. Barcode follows up, And now Interstellar can start to cap. But I suppose at least they don't have fast cap, right? Because you got the defense. But
Yeah.
still going to be tough to get in here.
That's that very awkward portion of you have to factor in the timing, right? Like you're up 39%, you should be able to get back for a touch, but it's also ice mines, so you're going to get dismounted. Like there's so many weird factors on this map specifically that'll slow down Celestial. They are going to be able to come back in and at least get the touch, stop them at 72%, Finch. But now they have to use these ults pretty well. I mean, the fact that you didn't get that Evil Mojo off last time, I think maybe a little bit of a hot head on Closar from how good the last mid fight went. You need to approach this one separately and recognize that you are a linchpin for your team.
Oh my goodness, taking so much damage from this Grover, and Closar again gets no value. I think, did the Evil Mojo go off? I heard it, but I'm not sure if it got consumed or not. Either way, Snaze is still alive, and Barcode and Interstellar continuing to fire off. ADC gets the big whirlwind, and Interstellar maintain control here of this mid. But the good news, looks like Closar still has that ult, so and Celestial still have a way back in here, but Toot Toot pays a heavy price just to get the touch.
And going for Barcode, I mean, you get the kill, but you lose your life in the process, and you don't necessarily get any of the high-priority targets. I think at this point, it feels kind of like throwing bodies on the pile. You're slowing down them grabbing the point, but you're not stopping Interstellar, right? And that's just a weird, I think, must-use for some of those ults. You didn't use the Begon, but for everything else, kind of had to throw it out there just to see what you could get. It just feels odd. I think the first time, maybe there wasn't a good position. But this is the key for an Evil Mojo, and, you know, there's a lot of great ones. You hit 3 people with it, it's one of the best feelings in Paladins. You're not going to hit 3 people with it. It's a competitive game. Like, that's just not going to be a realistic one for you. Try to get a tank. Try to get rid of the Inara. Try to get rid of one of the carries early on, as even if it's just one person on that team, they're in a 4v5 now, and all of a sudden you're able to tilt things way heavily into your team's favor, and that can change the pace of the game, and that's what I want to see Closar do to adapt as the game goes forward.
You saw Snaze looking for the snipe, I suppose, with the ultimate a little while ago, so that is down now. I believe he fell at about 40% recharge on that one, but Slop is showing up, as is Oteb, and Celestial now getting a bit of a decent defense going. Have already eaten up some of the time and stopped the cart much further back than when their own was on that stalled offense they had last time. They'll even push up a little bit and look for some dismounts, so not a bad defense going here for Celestial, especially on Ice Mines. This, at times, can be impossible to overcome, the positioning they've got.
Yeah, I think this is where things will slow down either drastically for Interstellar, although there's a seismic crash and the Sentinels and the Ice Storm. They really want to get back to this payload, and they're going to be able to get the touch, but they're not finding any kills for all of that investment.
Now Invul is up top, so perhaps he can find a way to rain down a little bit of damage. Sometimes Inara's Stone Spear can get a bit overlooked, but they can hurt. Especially can find some squishies. We'll see what her plan of attack is. She's got the whole squad with her now, and Celestial are starting to fall back. Where will they find their footing? This archway here is often a great spot to do so, but they're keeping this card rolling right on through, and Celestial still have not quite found a way to slow them down. And Tired now getting a couple of picks. Lapidopoulos has dropped. Interstellar looks like they might have some momentum as Otep falls well, and Closar is low in the back. It's a hunting party from Tired, and they find one more in Gore. The all-important conversion is here for Interstellar.
Now they're coming into this next round with an overpower. So Interstellar get the 3-1. They only have one ult to work with coming into this next mid, and the comeback mechanic fully enabled over there. 4% every tick that's going to be coming up as opposed to the typical 3. So Celestial are going to be pretty comfortable, I would argue, in this round if they can just get on the objective. Unfortunately, as that highlight dictates, getting on the objective is a completely different beast to tackle. All of these things that could still technically come out in your favor, and there's still one big hurdle to jump over. But, again, 5 ults. I'm just rounding Toot up. That reanimate's going to be up by the time he really needs to use it there. So the Terminus will be fine. And with a Midnight available, along with a Flashbang, I'm looking at a lot of vision deterrence that Interstellar are going to have to deal with. That should be bad news bears for Barcode, if anybody. It should slow him down pretty drastically.
Yeah, Interstellar come at a significant ultimate disadvantage here, don't they? They don't have some of their key ones, the Ice Storm, the Seismic Crash, the Whirlwind, all huge for them. But not available this fight. Celestial Knowing they're down, knowing they've got the comeback mechanic helping out a bit, they've already racked up 46% by planting Toot on the point. But there's the mid-might and the Evil Mojo coming out, and it confirms the kill on the Snaves, the only one with the ultimate ready to go. Slop gets invul as well, though they do lose Closar in all the madness, but I think that's an easy price to pay on Ice Mines. When you've got that fast cap, sometimes it can be a little too easy.
Yeah, I mean, you stand there. I was actually kind of flabbergasted. It's been a while since we've seen a team fully successfully convert when they are down by that 2 points and have that full, enhanced capture enabled for them. It's a lot faster than I remember it. I mean, it was always fast, so I guess that really isn't saying much. But realistically, like there, you win one fight, you're in, as long as you're down by 1 or 2 points, in that case as it was. And being able to function on this, if you can continue riding the coattails of your success there, this payload can keep going. They're already halfway down, but much like last time, that stall's coming through. And unless you're willing to drop an ult here, everything except for the reanimate, I don't know that there's going to be a very easy way back to that payload.
No, especially now that a couple of kills make it more than a couple. Darn near a full team wipe as Interstellar have found 5. They've now stalled out this push here of Selestial. Last time I think we saw some ultimates being willing to commit for them to start getting to that cart and pushing it, and it worked for Interstellar. Will Selestial do the same thing now that they are the team on offense seems to be the question, but they know for sure they're coming back to another mid-fight, right? So I think that makes it so much harder to commit ultimates in this spot, but maybe not if you get an early pick on the Snails.
I like this angle that can come through, but this is just good for Selestial. Unfortunately, again, this is the glory of Ice Mines. This is why I always say choke up when you have an advantage. You're going to lose this fight if you're Interstellar pretty heavily, maybe even get a stagger right here on the Inara, which can be devastating for a defense. And at the end of the day, your team's going to be back in time to stop the payload 2-3 more times, right? Like, you're not losing anything from that fight. So well played from them, and I think just good strategy coming down from Interstellar to be able to get that aggressive. Definitely holding on to this, which is, I guess, now the caveat time where you have to mention you can't win on a defense here. You don't get a point once you're at 3 in order to get this. So they're just trying to fight for the next mid. And honestly, with all ults available for them, the most they can do in the next 20 seconds is get as much on that whirlwind as they can and continue to hold.
And that's not a bad way to start it. Closar had a great first mid-fight, but I feel as though he's been much more hit and miss since then, hasn't he? Not quite locked in on this pip just yet, but there's still time on the clock. Not in this offense. This seems to be all over but the crying in terms of a successful defense here from Interstellar, but in terms of the actual map here on Ice Mines, they've still got time to lock this one in, and I think with no big surprise, Interstellar successfully defend.
Pretty much every ultimate available here. By the time it's necessary, I think ADC is bad is going to be able to charge up that whirlwind. So you get to come in on what feels like the first even ground, although there is still that technical comeback mechanic enabled for Celestial Esports. When you're down by 1 point, 4% every other tick that you stand on the objective, and 3% on the off ticks from that, right? So the standard rate enhanced a little bit. But it's going to be an interesting dynamic to tackle. I love how many resiliences that are on Interstellar and how many of them are maxed out. I mean, COT 3 and Resilience 3 is probably the best things, the best 2 items to have against this team. Helps deal with the healing, but most importantly, Closar's ult, as much as it is incredibly solid, it's not going to have a lot of time to work, and you're going to be able to maybe get a single kill if 2 people focus a target down. So if you can find Snays, especially if he misses the overpower, that's where the key will be.
But there's the answer from Closar that we've been looking for. Evil Mojo to immediately delete Snays, and maybe even a second. He sets up Roteb and Slop to both get kills, and as you mentioned, they'll be capping a bit faster here, so we might not even see another touch from Interstellar as ADC tries to die on the point to deny some cap, but this one over as soon as it began, and Celestial looking to see if they can end this one on a push.
I mean, they can get here. I don't know. We've seen so many captures that have not resulted in the conversion. This has moved progressively less, I think, as the game has gone on, right? Like, you get Celestial that first round, they almost get that full conversion, and then the next time Interstellar get a little bit further back, and then the next one a little further back for Celestial. This one feels like it should just stop here and then be stuck there for the rest of the map, but they stagger out this Inara, especially now 13 seconds behind the rest of the team. This payload should be able to make some pretty solid ground, and Otev's in a good position to try and capitalize on it.
Man, this is why Ice Mines is such a tough map. It's what you always see teams come to for the exact reason we saw on that mid. But there is the Ice Storm coming out and the Evil Mojo, the second of this round, but this one not going to result in a kill. Snaze with the Commander's grab does pull one, gets some much needed healing coming out from the Grover as well, and that's enough for the turnaround. Toot Toot has fallen. How does Celestial use all of those ultimates and still not able to convert it? Even the Reanimate comes out, but they lose Slapodopoulos in the back. Toot Toot is going to fall as well. Gora, heavy commitment, but it does not work.
I mean, they do it at it's the very awkward timing in Paladins of we have to use our ults now, or we cannot use them at 3-3 until the next round. Like, you either hold onto them perpetually, or you drop them when you can. That being said, that Reanimate may be the crucial key, right? I'm not worried about having Flashbang back up. I'm not worried about getting the Evil Mojo back up. Those will charge easily. Terminus is going to take a little while to get there. 19% right now, 50 seconds on the clock, so a lot of time to get that up and rise as much as he can, but there's a lot for Celestial to do, and like you said, just a heavy investment for not a lot of ground gain. In fact, for a lost fight at that. He needs something to make a huge difference and big impact here. And honestly, if they could pull some ults from Interstellar, I don't think you care whether you convert or not. It'd be nice to, but if you can get them to spend 1 or 2 ults, what today spent 1,
like
then
that,
you're in a better position.
No, you're absolutely right. They get the kill onto Xenos, yes, but a heavy price using the overpower. Barcode takes care of Toot Toot, but Closer is at least able to find his own kill, but too many of these are going Interstellar's way for Celestial to be able to succeed there. It might be done, but Gore using overpower there, that hurts.
Yeah.
That's an ultimate you'd really like to have in this next mid, and Celestial have the Evil Mojo back, right? They have the Midnight back as Slap dies on the tail end. Might be favoring Celestial coming into this next one.
I would almost argue that overpower, if I had to choose any other ult on that team, it would be so easy. Like, I would be happy
right.
to, like, Seismic Crash is still really solid, but, like, not necessary. Same thing, like, I think I want Whirlwind, but Overpower, that guaranteed kill at the beginning of the round as long as you can connect onto it, and so far Snaze has been doing pretty solid in terms of ult hits. That could be the big win for them. But now not having that, I mean, last round he didn't get it at the very beginning because Closar decided to absolutely erase him off of the map. But I don't know how often you're going to get to see that from Closar, where that perfect combo comes through in succession like that. And so Khan definitely going to be feeling the burn this time around. Once again, I'm leaning wherever this Evil Mojo goes. If it's good and gets a kill, or if it maybe flies a little wide and doesn't touch anything, that'll dictate whether or not Celestial can take this.
Well, let's see if Closar can find the magic once more. 3-3 when the set is tied 1-1. Evil Mojo does come out.
Blink.
That is enough to lock down one, but it does not result in any kills. Otev, though, does complete the job eventually as Snaze will drop. So without that Khan, things do get harder for Interstellar, but they have the Inara there, so things aren't over. And Barcode has gotten the kill into close start, so it has been 1-for-1. But look where Celestial are on their percent. They're up to 84, 87, and Interstellar can't find the touch. But finally, they get the Inara out. They do find a touch. They push back Celestial, who are waiting to regroup once Closar returns, and Otev as well.
But notice, it's not a choke-up. They don't have the pressure on Celestial. Not everyone died, with Terminus still alive and in the area, and almost at his reanimate, he's going to be able to get back there at least for a touch. I don't think Interstellar win off of that one. They have to take one more fight. They just got a good kill, but is it going to be enough?
Slop down. This is their opportunity, but Toot and Closar answer back by putting down Tired and Barcode. So much of the damage is now missing for Interstellar. How can they hope to win from this point? But Invul steps up. So does my ADC. Right when I start to doubt them, they find a couple kills. Celestial, though, are the ones at 99%. Evil Mojo is here, and it puts down the last two members. Celestial are holding on long enough to win Ice Mines.
Look, man, it's so easy to say there's a tank in front of me, I'm going to ult him, I'm going to hit him with Evil Mojo. He's not going anywhere. I know I can do this one. And instead to know, you know what? They're going to try to go for a touch. I don't know who it's going to be. I don't know where how they're going to get there. I'm just going to ult over there. I'm going to force someone into an awkward position. I think that's a heads-up play from the Pip. Good play from Closar to have that wherewithal to do so. And I'm excited to see him because I was really worried going into that. They won 2 points in a row, but all of them were comeback mechanic enabled. I was really wondering how that equal footing would do for them. And they played it wonderfully.
They really did. Played well around that pip. Obviously a great pick for them. And now, with the 2-1 advantage, they put all the pressure on Interstellar. They'll get a chance to think about it in U2 over this quick break.
What your game is, girl. When you touch me, feel so good, I can't contain it. When you love me, I'm so high, so confident, yeah. When you say I'm the only one, I must admit it. I get suspicious, just a little suspicious. I get suspicious, just a little suspicious. I get suspicious, just a little suspicious. Tell me what your game is, what your game is. Cause I haven't slept for days, not slept for days, yeah. Baby, love is never painless, never painless. No, excuse me for being suspicious. When you touch me, feel so good, I can't contain it. When you love me, I'm so high, so confident, yeah. And you say I'm the only one, I must admit it. I get suspicious, just a little suspicious. 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 I get suspicious, just a little suspicious.
Guess this is what we need to expect on Ice Mines here. An early lead gets mitigated, and then things go all 7 points down the stretch. Now we got a 2-1 lead here in this set, one game away from finding ourselves our first team knocked out of EU. Fawn the Elf joins me here on the desk to let me know what happens here on Ice Mines. Fawn, you're feeling chilly. We just got off Ice Mines. Totally understood.
Right, exactly. And I think what's more so important than anything is just basically the pure fact that, okay, to explain the elf out very, very briefly before we get into the breakdown.
Yeah, go ahead.
I saw Gormai's Christmas tree. I saw Ryan's or Agro's Christmas tree. And I was like, you know what? I feel like it's important to be in the Christmas spirit. And since we went to Ice Mines, it's absolutely perfect. So I think this is very, very good for us to actually be able to do this. I think it's fine. It's a little bit chilly. Hard to dodge all the bullets and all the ultimates that are flying through. I try to not get Evil Mojo myself on Ice Mines, right? So I think overall, I'm doing pretty okay. As for the team that lost, they're probably not doing so good. And I think that has to do mostly with the pip, if anything. I think the pip is a very, very good substitute to be able to try and counter out that Grover. I think they did a great job with putting so much pressure onto their supports. Klosar being a little bit too aggressive earlier on in the game, kept trying to push in, kept trying to get picks, if anything, and it overall ended up working out for him in the early phases like this, where the game at first just started. But as it went on, it became harder and harder for him to adapt to situations like that, so he had to play a little bit more patiently. Beautiful Midnight from Maeve, when the score was tied up at 2-2 and they were trying to capture the objective. The Midnight made sure that Pip didn't get overpowered like Khan wanted to, and he got turned immediately. That was an early pick, and it definitely set the pace for the rest of the game for Celestial.
Yeah, so often with Ice Mines, the ebb and flow kind of moves around with the ultimates and where things are. Now that gives Celestial, again, a commanding 2-1 lead here in this set. Interstellar are going to have to win back-to-back, but has gone to 5 games a lot of times that we've seen these two teams play. I do want to zone in a little bit more maybe on this Pip pick, Fawn. Do you think it's kind of an Ice Mines one-off, or do you think this is maybe a pick that we start to see a little bit more of, maybe just something out of the back pocket? What's your take?
I think it was a great pick for Ice Mines. I mean, I've seen Pip being picked by people like Simsulu so many times on Ice Mines as well. If we look back at last year in 2019, There's a lot of times where Pick was pipped on Pick. Oh my gosh, that's a tongue twister, right? Holy. There's a lot of times where Pip was picked on Ice Mines, is what I'm trying to say. And so, since that's the case, I feel like he has a little bit of an easier time actually maneuvering around Ice Mines. That waitlist plays a huge role in how things actually go. When you move from one point to the next one, it just ends up making it way easier. He gets into a better position, and it's hard to stop him if you aren't ready for him. I think personally, though, I don't think they'll pick him every time on other maps, but I still think that Ice Mines is probably his best bet, and I really love their awareness on that.
Right, I mean, Resilience, so good against the Pip, and we talked a little bit about it, how he has that potential to fall off, so I like him as a pocket pick every once in a while. Maybe you let him see a little play, but probably not a game in, game out sort of pick in the same way that he used to be. So now we move on to map number 4, and Fish Market apparently is just going to be a mainstay in these best of fives. I feel like I've seen more Fish Market over the last couple of days than we did in a lot of sets over in the PPC throughout the year. What do you see in a map like this? I think IO, if I'm throwing my own 2 cents in there, I think IO becomes very, very important here. The ability to get off of that point as soon as possible and fight elsewhere is very important here on this map. Do you have similar vibes? Do you think point tanks maybe start to gain some priority?
IO is definitely a pick that you want to be able to have on this map. I think the longer angles help IO keep line of sight way easier. It allows her to be able to find a lot more cover. There's a lot of choke points in areas that are sort of like long hallways, quote unquote, to where you would have to move down in a singular line for the most part. But I think it helps out IO greatly in the long run. If she doesn't get banned, I can definitely see her being picked. I think Luna, especially on this map, since the map is so wide, it really helps that cart push. And it doesn't stall them out because of how they have to get from point A point B. Luna sort of eliminates that, right? And I think that IO could be a good pick on here. I also feel like the Anara could be a great pick on here. I feel like her sustainability is really good. It's just they have to be able to win these fights, because if she ever gets dismounted on this map, she's not making it out the point. That's just that's just not happening.
Yeah, mobility, the buzzword of the weekend, continues to rear its head here on Fish Market. Ash has plenty of it, whether mounted or dismounted. Shoulder bash, great at opening up avenues that might not be there for other less mobile tanks. Makoa definitely in that conversation as well. So both teams prioritizing similar things with their first picks here. And then a Strix, not surprisingly, I don't think, Fawn, picked second overall here by Celestial. Our first Fish Market of the day was absolutely taken over earlier on in that matchup. Prosper Logic on the Strix just decimated the opposing team. For good reason. Lots of sight lines that you can make use of.
Saris, again?
No,
I mean,
no.
I can understand, right? But how? Like,
Can you understand that?
Corvus, I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt, Dave. Honestly, I don't know why. Like, Corvus is open, Genos is open. You can even pick Maldamba if you want to. Probably not going to be the case, but we've seen him be picked up during the World Championship before. I don't know. I'm not sure why the Saris is the pick here. I feel like it's a little bit of like a not serious pick. I'm not sure as to the potential is that she has that might do well against Makoa and Strix. If she goes her healing reach talent where it increases the amount of healing she does and the range at which she heals, and it takes longer for it to break off, then I don't think that she is doing a good service. I think she has to. I think she has to go her trait that gives her more stacks the more she actually rends souls, and it works out. Yeah, you just gave up Io. I don't know. I can't. I'm talking about it because I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt. I don't know why the Saris is picked up here.
That's why you're a good analyst there, Fawn. You gotta find the good in these situations, even when you gotta dig a little bit deeper for it. I mean, we're only harsh on Saris because we didn't see anything great out of her earlier on. Especially, before it was like, man, you could have had Genos, you could have had Grover. Here, you could have had Corvus, you could have had Genos, you could have had Grover, you could have had Io, and still, Saris is the first priority healer, which is why, the eyebrows are maybe a little bit raised here. Let's move away from the healers, though, and look at the rest of what these teams have drafted. I think Strix, Buck, Zin, it's a pretty dive-heavy, setup-heavy composition. Do you think Celestial have what it takes to finish off this set here?
I definitely think their sustainability and their survivability is something to always keep in mind. This is the same sort of draft that we saw on Stone Keep beforehand, right? Buck and Zen, they're gonna go do whatever it is they want to. They'll handle the situation as best as they can. They have that sustainability and that survivability. Buck has his healing. Zen obviously has Billow. He has counter. He has so many ways to escape scenarios. And Io is just pretty much going to do the same thing she did beforehand. Focus on healing Strix. Focus on healing Makoa. And I think Celestial will be pretty okay.
Well, maybe Interstellar. Maybe the Ceres has the ability to combo on some of these ults a little bit better here in this game. Celestial 1 game away from sending Interstellar home. Will they do it? Finch and Gore will let us know.
It would be a tough way for your Paladins' dreams to end, at least for this season, but one of them will end here. Fish Market might be the location, Gore, and Ceres might be the pick that it happens on. We've seen so much of it. Can you make maybe a bit more sense of it than Fawn, or are you just as stumped?
Well, let's look at Mortal Reach, and let's look at the positives that Ceres has. Really, really good single-target healing. Mortal Reach gives her a lot of extra range, and this is a large map, so she's going to be able to keep that heal onto people all around the world. Convergence is a really good team ult. I would still pick virtually every other support in the role before I got to Ceres. I definitely would not top 2 her in any competitive game. But she does have some merits here. That being said, I think this Luna, or this Io on the other side, with Luna, is definitely going to make a pretty heavy difference and hefty difference here for Celestial.
Well, so far, it's been all Celestial, hasn't it? 3 picks to their name already, and 42% to go the same way. You know, I really thought, oh, good knock there from Ash. If you were wondering, I was just about to say, why Ash never gets played. You just saw one of the many reasons. I think Assert Dominant is probably reason number 1, but Shoulder Bash pretty good too, as Interstellar now finally get a couple of kills on their own side and establish some control off the back of Snaves.
It's really weird to look at it. I think 4/5 of what Interstellar have locked in here. I actually like the draft. I think they went for the Mercy kill on Tyra, though, which has me a little shaky. I was hoping for something as weird as it is to maybe go Burn Monster just to burn down literally the objective. But on Ice Mines, you're not really focused on the mid as much as it is that you are focused on, well, the side fights, right? Win the side, then you get the mid afterward. That's where that 93 comes up for Celestial.
My God.
Right now, tired. I can't complain about that.
He's making it work, but Xenost is just as nasty, it would seem. He gets 2 of his own as the overtime ticking in favor of Celestial, but can they hold on to control? It's just Luna out there for now, it would seem, and that's getting the job done. Overtime ticks down, and Celestial get yet another point, and Xenos gets another 2. I'm not sure if these are all last hits or not, but either way, they're going to the support.
I mean, honestly, I'm waiting for a B-Gon that's going to go send 2-3 people off the edge of the map at this point. I mean, this just seems like it almost feels as though Celestial, didn't win outright with the draft, but I think the disparates and healers, again, I feel like I'm going to rip on Ceres one more time, but it's just because, look, Vex 30, one of the best supports to have ever played Paladins, could not make it work in the regular season there in North America. I think it goes to say, if I could give it to someone like Cuscuti, again, one of the other best supports that has touched Paladins, I don't know that they could make it work in this meta, and so I just don't know where it's coming from or why Interstellar seem ready to die on this hill, because there's a very long list of supports I would rather have. I think Furia would be so good on this map for them here, and yet unfortunately they're in this position. Unless they get a really sick convergence, I just don't know what to expect.
Somebody timestamp it for me when Toot Toot finally misses a hook. Whew. Closar couldn't have been any closer to the edge there. Nope, we're not going to see it happen today. Toot Toot is on fire with these hooks, but will it be enough to convert? I don't think so. There's too many members of Interstellar here. Our cursed arm is used to try and keep them alive, but the Buck has lived through it, turns around, gets the shot onto Closar. Double kill onto Oteb, and Interstellar hold on to life, but it is life support as they are barely standing right now. The cart is right on the precipice of conversion.
There's a lot of avenues to cover here. If they had a spite, there's some cheeky things Celestial could do to get to that payload as well without getting noticed. But ultimately, at this point, they are going to be held at bay. Like you said, it's right there. I mean, it's in the downhill portion. That's actually where it turns into kind of an aggressor's advantage. It's taken away from the defender. And so Celestial, if they get back to this payload, might just be able to end it off of that, as though they have to get there healthy. They have the ults online and the damage available to them, especially with shots like that from Slop. It's going to be pretty easy for him to try and get this conversion.
Wow.
Jeez.
I mean, can we see anything other than Toot landing every hook? Is there anything else to watch? I don't think so. As Xenos
It doesn't matter what perspective you're on.
Right? For whoever view it is, we're seeing Toot relentlessly hook, and that's how they're up 2-0.
Yeah, I mean, that's just good. Look, we talk about Makoa all the time. Every time he's locked in, I feel like this weekend I've said, yeah, if he hits his hooks, this is going to be solid. And Toot's hitting his hooks. Like, he's just doing it better than a lot of it. He also, I actually really love this build. It's a little different, and specifically going for Barrier Reef in his loadout is pushing towards his half shell and that shield that comes through. Because, hey, every single bit of damage that it's going to take, its cooldown's going to go down. Your shield is going to be up a little bit more. That enables him to stay in this fight a little bit more often. He also has Surf up there along with Ebb and Flow, both of those that keep him very safe, allows him to Surf, get out of there a little further, and Ebb and Flow get out of there faster in the event that it's on cooldown. It'll come up a little bit more. And so for this Makoa, Toot's just going to be aggressive, and there's not a lot they can do to stop him outside of just outright kill him.
I think he's going to walk by this Ashe and look for another hook. He hooked the Ashe. Unfortunately, he died to Barcode on the tail end. So that's still not missing a hook in my book. Tired, looking for a couple more shots he can find as Snaze gets Slop and Close Arts to hold the phone. Interstellar are certainly still in this, especially if they can lock down the buck. Didn't quite happen, but they've got him pinned down anyway. And Interstellar might still have some signs of life here.
Look, ultimately, it is not going to end up hurting him, but Tired took 800 damage there standing in his own fire. There was no damage coming in from external sources. It was all Tyra all day, but luckily for him, again, it doesn't necessarily make a big distraction for them there. And Snaze, I think this Ashe is kind of the big player. Both of these tanks have been the driving factor, although I will say maybe there's more merits to what Celestial have. But when I look at what Interstellar have as a draft, triple DPS is always the way to go for Fish Market. But I don't know that their DPS, unless Andro pops off or this Leon turns around, I don't know that they're going to get a lot done with this payload for the first little bit. I mean, it hasn't budged virtually at all since they picked it up, and I don't know if there's a lot of wiggle room for them.
I still count that as a hit. It connected, just couldn't pull there. Okay, I'm the Toot Stan account now, apparently. A Slop lands 2. That's Barcode and ADC dropping, and they want Invul here as well. They can make it around the corner. Yet another hook, yet another kill. Toot is relentless. Build a shrine in his honor. I don't know what Stan accounts tweet, but I'm doing my best here on the fly.
Man, I'm trying to think of it. There's a card in Talus's loadouts. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but it does have a Shrine to Makoa on it. And I think that's the closest you've got in this to the Shrine to Toot that comes through. Maybe this is why he gets that statue over there. I think it just comes in. I mean, he's one of the ancients. He's one of the longest champions that has been in the game for Paladins.
Yep.
And this is just looking good for him. But there's some slip-ups here. I was going to say a slip-up. It was just a good ult turnaround there for a little bit from Barcode. This is just good defense coming down from Celestial. This is kind of what you expect. If you can't get things rolling really fast on Fish Market, you're going to hit a lot of snags in that long, narrow passageway. And let's say they get there if they're Interstellar. All you have to do, if you're Celestial, you get your IO lined up, and you just shoot them all off with your ult, or you force them away from the payload. Either way, I think you count that as a win. They're all locked up, grouped up over here for Interstellar. Feels like shooting fish in a barrel almost for Celestial.
It has been so far, but they've lost Toot, the man of the hour, and that might be the opening Interstellar needed. This is a map where, once you get to the card, it's not the most difficult push in the world until you get to the end of it, so we'll see what Interstellar can do, but 10 seconds left, losing ADC, losing Barcode. Gore, I think this has moved into the realm of the undoable for them. Snaze drops as well, and Celestial has done enough to move all the way to 3. You know, overtime is ticking, so someone's over there by the actual card. Let's see. Oh, it's the Andro. It's Invul. He remembered where they're supposed to be, but I think his death, is not too far away either. Xenos gets there, but he's been elusive. Invul maybe bought his team enough time because other people are making it to the carts. But even if they keep this overtime ticking, the task remains too tall from this point.
I mean, you're in maybe a 3v5, yeah, to try and keep things going in overtime right now for 50% of the push. Doesn't seem like it has a lot of good prospects behind it. And then is confirmed to not have a lot of good prospects behind it. Let's talk about slash lines. A lot of kills on the side of
Yeah.
Celestial. 10, 5, and 13 for Otev. 12, 4, and 14 here for
good.
Slopadopoulos. He's doing pretty solid on the Strix. And I think it's so interesting, again, how things have changed over the years for Strix. Right now, Tactical Retreat, the number 1 card in his loadout, giving him a little bit of that movement speed after his stealth, or after entering stealth, which is going to allow him pretty easy repositioning, which so far has been crucial for him. I mean, Tired, Invul, Barcode, all, especially at range, still able to kind of keep a good trade against a Strix, but being able to move as fast and, well, as invisible as he does is allowing him a lot of repositions here. And of course, he keeps hitting those headshots. You can't do anything but fawn over those because of how good they've been.
No, I think Fawn's on the desk here, right? As Otev
like
takes
the
care of...
FAW.
Oh, of course. Barcode and Dude finding the kill. Slop puts down Tired. And yet another mid-fight going the way of Celestial. But this is the mid-fight that would seal the fate of Interstellar. They will be removed from the tournament. And Celestial would move on to face the winner, the loser rather, of the winner's semifinals. But that's only if a touch can't be found. But Toot finds another hook, puts down Barcode all on his lonesome, keeps 3 zoned out all on his lonesome, while Sneeze cannot find a way to touch. There's too much in his way. So maybe it'll be the Andro, but he falls as well. Now Sneeze makes it in there, but that's the end of his life. And Celestial Esports appear to have done it. They put down Interstellar, and they will move on in the tournament.
I mean, that map, they play better, they draft better. Everything they had came into that a little bit stronger. And I think you look at that second round where, yes, they technically lose the mid, but at the end of the day, they were still controlling that defense immensely. They were winning all those fights. I don't know, like Interstellar, there is no drawing board anymore. You're out, but stop. Saris, get her out of here. I think that is, like, I don't want to hang it all on the Saris, but I think if you have any other more impactful support play for that team, we're at least going a little bit longer in the game and having something that feels a little more competitive there. Celestial, it just feels like once they lost that first map, kind of dug their heels in and shoved back as hard as they could, and they won because of it.
Really impressive bounce back here from Celestial. They will be the ones moving on. We do bid farewell to, obviously, Interstellar. We'll get it back to the desk, though, have them break down how Interstellar lost.
There really was no denying Celestial after they lost map number 1. They just roll on through over the next few games. Fawn, I actually think you were the one who kind of said, hey, I think that this is going to be a game 1 loss and then 3-game win streak, something like that. You saw something that the rest of us didn't hear, and you were right. Celestial go down early and then win a few straight and take the set.
Yeah, and I think they had some very interesting picks overall, genuinely. I mean, it went from the Pip to the IO on Fish Market. I had talked a little bit about it before, about how I like the IO on Fish Market. Those longer lines of sight means it's harder to break, but I wanted to go back and sort of renege a little bit on the statement it was that I mentioned about Saris. I talked a little bit with Krez, and we were just sort of like watching, like in a different Discord, whatever the case was, and Saris has that same sort of advantage. The only issue it is that I particularly have is the fact that her healing, whether it be AoE or her trying to focus and spread out those heals, that's problematic. IO can pocket effectively because of the DR that is able to be afforded through her healing, and I think that's what it came down to in the long run. I feel like the Cauterize hits Saris harder than most healers, and while Luna may not be necessarily important to Fish Market because it's so easy to zone on the map, I genuinely think that it still was a little bit of the battle of the healers. But even still, Slop was pretty much sitting pretty most of the time in the back. I mean, there were a lot of shots that he was hitting him, and you see it right there. They couldn't really break the lines. And the Zen and Buck, same sort of situation that we saw on Stone Keep. They pretty much do their own thing. They push out. They try and make sure they get those zones, get those dismounts, get what you can, and keep everyone pinned down. And Slop has pretty much a free game. And you have situations like this that happen all the time. The double kills, the triples, just making sure he spreads out that damage in between all those targets because no one can get into the back because they can't get past Zen and Buck.
I still find it interesting now in back-to-back games where Interstellar, if they lose, they're going to lose the set. They go to Saris. I just think it's an interesting pocket pick where you're like, all right, guys, we got to win or we go home. Now twice they go to the Saris. Interesting or not, that's the choice they made, and unfortunately did not work out. The good to focus on is that Celestial is moving on, awaiting the loser of the next matchup that we have here. Of course, those are the two teams that have not lost yet. Fun, I kind of put myself out on a limb earlier on and said, between the two teams that are standing on top of this region here, the two that are still waiting up there in the upper bracket, wouldn't be surprised if the loser of that one wins and moves on into the finals later on. That's, of course, Yoinkers and Clown Fiesta. Do you see a world where obviously Yoinkers or Clown Fiesta has to lose, and then we just see a rematch of that in the finals?
I personally, I think I'm going to phrase it like this. I just think Yoinkers and Clown Fiesta and EU bracket are just built different. I think that's the only way how it is that I can phrase it, right?
Sure.
I genuinely think that, sure, props to Celestial and Interstellar, even though Interstellar were just knocked out. I think that they have something that goes well with them. They bring out the more weirder picks. We haven't really seen the Pip. We haven't really seen some of the other characters that they're willing to bring out during their draft. But in the long run of things, I think that I do see a world where Yoinkers and Clown Fiesta meet again in the finals, regardless of who loses, unless Celestial have more stuff up their sleeve and can take the loser of that match by surprise. Then I can expect to see Clown Fiesta and Yoinkers fighting again.
Fun. I love the optimism. I think that Celestial can catch one of these two teams by surprise. I'm still putting my chips in a Yoinkers versus Clown Fiesta finals a little bit later on. Semifinals, Yoinkers versus Clown Fiesta. That's going to be a fun one, a matchup we haven't seen yet. Before we get there, Fawn, do you lean one way or another just kind of initially, or do you think it's just going to be a good old-fashioned close matchup?
I think it's going to be a great close matchup, man. I mean, Yoinkers versus Clown Fiesta, I mean, that has to be something that everyone needs to watch because these two teams are first and second seed respectively. It's going to be a close match. I genuinely can't wait to see the match unfold.
Yoinkers versus Clown Fiesta, our first semifinal, and maybe a Furious skin code or something like that right after this break.